Hello there, Ladus here from the Baileywiki team. Today we're going to make miniatures, but not for your characters. Instead, we're going to see just how far we can push Turnsheet and what it's capable of. We'll be looking at vehicles, and for this video, we'll primarily be working with ships. We'll create a small diorama and a collection of miniature ships that you could use for a pirate campaign or anything similar. First, we'll hop over to MadProps because we need to generate a ship. I've tried generating objects directly in Turnsheet, which actually turned out great, but for some reason it doesn't seem to handle ships very well on its own. So instead, we'll use MadProps to create an artwork we want. MadProps has already generated a nice looking sailing ship just as we requested it. Once we're happy with the image, we'll head back over to Turnsheet and import it. Then we'll hit Generate Action Pose. Since we're only interested in making a 3D model, we really just need the action pose, as this is what the 3D generation will be based on. Once that's done, we'll scroll all the way down to a 3D model. Here we can choose between Tripo and Meshy. I prefer Tripo because it generally produces fewer vertices, which is better for keeping the load on Foundry VTT manageable. Once the 3D model has finished generating, we just need to name our character and save it. This makes it much easier to find and import later. Now, let's jump over to Foundry and import our newly created 3D model. I already have the scene built out here. Since we're mainly focusing on the miniatures at the moment, how to create them and import the process, you'll also get to see how quickly you can put together an environment like this. First, we'll create a new character and give it a name. Turnsheet has its own imported directly inside the character sheet, so once we've named our character, we can simply import the artwork we just created. And there we go. In just a few steps, we've generated a ship, turned it into a 3D model, and imported it into Foundry as a miniature. Creating minis and assets with Turnsheet and MadProps is surprisingly straightforward. And if you want to see how easily we create the 3D environments, stick around, we'll be taking a look at that next. First, I started with some sort of terrain generated for a landmass that could hold a town or something similar. I didn't have any kind of exact vision at this point, but later it turned out okay. Then I added water to create a surrounding ocean and sea, and from there I dropped some rocks and scenic elements to give the landmass a bit more visual structure, and to have the whole diorama have more points of interest. You could use these rocks as volcanoes or hidden treasure coves. Since it's a scaled diorama, it does not necessarily have to be perfectly representing everything. And that's where you can have ideas such as the ones I have mentioned. Next, I added a second landmass that could only be reached by ship. After that, I adjusted the opacity of the water so we could still see the terrain underneath the sea. Then I added a pier and a dockhouse to the first landmass. That's when I noticed the ground was looking a little wobbly, so I went back and cleared the ocean shader that had excellently been applied on the landmass. For the docks, I used the Docks Pier asset that was released last month. We'll be using the same setup on both landmasses, giving our ships somewhere to dock. Once that was in place, I had the idea of putting a stone fort on the second landmass. I added some bastions and walls, and although you'll see these change later, as they didn't quite come through as bastions the way I wanted it. the fort was kind of shaping up. Once the fort was in place, I added a market. Then I figured every town needs a fountain, a temple, and some houses. So I scaled everything down to the appropriate size and I finished up the fort. After that, I went back to the houses using a scale of 0.002 and started placing them around the smaller town and the other landmass. They were looking pretty good, so I decided to fill out the environment with some trees. These are called far trees, and they have been specifically created for filling in backgrounds, so anything that's not playable. That means they have a very small amount of geometry, which allows you to add a large number of them without Foundry having a meltdown over all the vertices. So I cloned them and spread them across the entire miniature map. After a couple of off-camera touch-ups, the map was ready. Now we have a small miniature world that can be populated with our ships. Whether you're planning a siege against this fortified island, or traveling between the towns, or simply just giving your fleet somewhere to call home, this map has you covered for any naval adventure. We hope you enjoyed the video. Consider checking out some other videos and subscribe if you'd like to see more tutorials. Let us out, stay crispy, and happy map making!